Hey y'all, welcome back. Today we're checking out American Reacts to 9 Things British People Love.
And that whole ride, he sat there and he said nothing. People are like trying to come up with things to talk about because nobody wants to be the first person to suggest that maybe the meal is over. But occasionally this happens where you could remark like, oh, wow, parking is only 50p for 6 hours. Like, that's actually really reasonable. They don't say it like that because I feel like no British person talks like that, but you know what I mean. So complaining here is basically what brings people together.
Interesting. Okay. Complaining is what brings people together.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Girl Gone London channel. If you're new here, my name is Kaylin. I'm an American who's lived in the UK for almost 10 years. And today I am talking about the things that British people love to do.
Hey y'all, before we get too far, be sure to go to Girl Gone London and like and subscribe. This is Kaylin, as she just said that, so I don't know why I have to say it. I like her videos because she has a unique take on the whole UK versus USA thing. It's more of a personal experience than like broad generalizations. So let's see what she says.
Now, before I get too far into the video, one thing to mention is I am in a new surrounding, but don't worry, it's still my house where I have been since March of last year, basically. Okay, so the first thing to notice is that I do have a different background behind me. Don't worry, I'm not breaking any rules or traveling. I have simply traveled from upstairs to downstairs in my house where I've been basically since last
Branching
March.
out.
However, there is good news on the horizon. I actually was able to get my vaccine the day before yesterday. If you want a video about how the UK is handling the vaccines or what lockdown has been like in the UK or my process of getting the vaccine or whatever, comment below, let me know.
Remember vaccines? Remember all that? When did this come out? It's 3 years ago. 2021. That's about the time. I don't like thinking about that time. It was strange. I think in some ways I've totally blocked it out. What happened in 2021? I don't even know.
But this video is not about that. This video is my observations on things that British people love to do. And now, I'm not necessarily saying that everybody loves to do all of these things, but these are things that British people do often as a generalization. So I have to imagine somewhere along the way someone is enjoying it. And before anybody gets offended, I could equally do a video about the weird things that Americans do because there are a lot of them, but this is just the British version.
Okay, so these aren't necessarily things British people love, but it's things that they do. So they must love it because they do it. I think that's what she said.
Okay, thing number one. British people like to complain, or what they would call moan, about basically everything, but not in an attempt to fix it. So complaining here is basically what brings people together. You complain with your neighbors, you complain online, you complain in your office, you complain with your family, but you're not actually attempting to solve any sort of problem. And if somebody suggests a solution to that problem, that is basically breaking the rules, the general social etiquette, because you are basically supposed to respond to complaining with like more complaining or validating their complaining.
Is this a British American difference? I wouldn't know. I guess I'm surprised because I feel like Americans do that. I don't know if that's part of the culture. Is it more of it might be more of a personality thing, like an individual personality. I don't know. Let's see what she said.
For instance, my husband, who is English, was mentioning something about how somebody in our road was parking along 2 parking spots or something like that. We'll get to parking later, don't you worry. And so he was complaining and he was saying, you know, this person is taking up too many spaces, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, good old American over here, like, why don't we politely knock on the door and we can just be like, hey, like, would you mind, you know, not parking over 2 spaces because we're having trouble getting in? And I was like, why don't we do that? And he just gave me this look like, you have no idea what you're doing here. Why would I ever go and knock on somebody's door and ask them to help solve the problem that I'm complaining about? And I'm like, but what is our other solution? And he was like, there is no solution. I was like, there is a solution. We could just go ask them. And he wouldn't do it. because he basically wanted to complain for the sake of complaining, and he did not want it fixed, and it will probably never be fixed. And every single time we drive into the neighborhood and see that this neighbor has parked on multiple parking spots, he will comment about it every single time, but he will never ask, he will never confront. And when the neighbor walks by walking their dog or cat or whatever, he will wave politely and be like, hey neighbor, but inside he's seething. Anyway, got off on a little tangent there, but that is what British people like to do, and that makes no sense to me as an American who's like, either shut up or solve the problem. Those are your two options. British people love to complain, national pastime. It's just what you do here to bond and to get through those gray days, I guess.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess my impulse would be to talk to the neighbor, especially if I just saw him walking by. Actually, I have upstairs neighbors, and we've communicated about making things easier for the both of us. So yeah, at the same time, I can empathize with letting someone complain. Yeah, some people when they complain, they're just looking for some, they want to be soothed about the problem. They want someone to say, you're right, you have every reason to complain, this sucks, I'm so sorry this is happening to you, you're right. And other people are like complaining because they want to solve the problem. Both are valid reasons to complain. If she's saying that's a British-American difference, I'm going to take her word for it.
Okay, the second thing is British people love to say they're fine even when they're not. And we could take this out to a million different areas. We could go the heavier route, like I talked about in the mental health video, where people definitely tend to keep their feelings more inside here and say they're fine emotionally when they're not. But also, the best way I can describe this in a lighthearted way is I was on the train to London once, and there just happened to be this drip, a steady drip that just all of a sudden started from someone's like water bottle or something, or from the train, I don't know, from above our seats. And if we were in the States, there would have been a mass exodus of people like pushing and shoving their way out of this area because nobody wants to be dripped on.
Yeah.
Not so on this train with British people. Let me tell you, this
What?
man sat there for the entire hour train ride, something steadily dripping on him. Like he is starting to become wet. His shirt is starting to turn color because it is becoming wet from whatever is dripping on him. And that whole ride, he sat there and he said nothing. Nothing on his face said anything that he was uncomfortable, that he thought maybe he shouldn't be dripped on, that maybe he wanted to move. He just sat there and was just like projecting this energy to the world like, it's fine, I'm fine. Nothing phases me, nothing bothers me, does not matter. I could get to London and I could be swimming in whatever liquid is falling from the sky, don't care. So that was my first really a funny like visual introduction to what it means to be British for some people. Really not making a fuss, not saying anything, just you're fine. It's all fine, we're fine, you're fine, I'm fine, and never letting on when it's not fine.
I'm a pretty passive guy, but I think when I go to Britain, people might think I'm kind of aggressive. If there was water dripping on me, I would move seats. I would tell the bus driver. This kind of reminds me of the Stephen Fry comments about the differences in comedy between the States and the UK. Whereas in the States, people have this hope that they can be whatever. I could be the president of the United States. I could do whatever. And I'm not bound by class, even though I am. But in the UK, there's this feeling of hopelessness because the class system is more rigid, and you couldn't be the king of England necessarily. I mean, I think you could, but it would probably not work out very well. You know, there'd have to be a battle at least, some lives lost. It would be a big deal.
The third thing that British people actually do enjoy doing is sitting for a long time after you finish a meal and talking. So in the US, when we went out to a restaurant for one of the first times with my husband and some friends, again, my husband being English, we ate at the restaurant, we paid, and we all gathered our belongings to get up, all the Americans. And my husband was over there like settling in because he was like, oh, we're gonna be here for a few couple hours. And we were like, oh, we finished, so we're gonna go now. What are you doing? And it was only when I moved to the UK that I realized that The custom in the UK is not to, whether this is at a restaurant or in a family home, the meal is simply a means to an end to talk for hours. There have been times when we have been sat at a family dinner table like 2 hours after we have finished eating the dessert. It's dead quiet. People are like trying to come up with things to talk about because nobody wants to be the first person to suggest that maybe the meal is over and we can disperse now. Like, people just kept coming up with topics, and that is a very British thing to do, a British way of eating. It's really about the conversation that takes place obviously before the meal and during the meal, but after the meal. Whereas in America, we're like, we have places to go, we have people to see, things to do. Once we've finished eating, maybe we'll have a small chat, a couple of minutes, and then we're out of here. So that is another huge difference that I've noticed, and something that British people seem to really enjoy doing.
Yeah, that would be bizarre to me if we sat at a restaurant for another couple hours after the meal. That would be bizarre. I think the server would probably hint for us to get out of there. I will say, though, that during holiday meals like Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner, we will sit around after the meal and talk for a long time at the table. At the dessert, conversation lingers. I don't know about a couple hours, though. Maybe like 30 minutes. And it's nice. It's nice.
The fourth thing that British people seem to enjoy doing is using cream on everything. And I don't mean like hand cream. I mean cream that you would pour on like a cake or a dessert. So in the States, we don't really do this that much. Like, you might have cake and ice cream together, but British people love to have whatever dessert you put in front of them, and they want the custard or the cream to pour all over it. Half the time I'm like, I cannot even see your cake anymore because it is so completely covered by cream, and I still have not really gotten on board with this. I kind of enjoy my dessert as it is. Some desserts are meant to have the cream like as a component, but in my husband's family, they will just pour cream on anything sweet, and that's just a staple part of the meal, whereas in the US, we don't really do that. So I would definitely say that British people seem to enjoy cream on desserts.
What kind of cream? Like whipped cream? Clotted cream? The ubiquitous accompaniment for clotted cream is a scone. I wonder why that is. I would think that the cream dilutes the sugar. It makes a sweet thing a little less sweet per mouthful. Americans love sugar, so I bet we probably don't do it as much because it thins out the flavor. But we do it sometimes, like a little whipped cream on top of a piece of pie, or ice cream with pie. A la mode. That's interesting. I haven't heard that before.
Okay, the next thing that British people enjoy doing is a lot of times I would say having regional pride, even if they don't call it pride and wouldn't think of it as pride, but identifying regionally. So there is a huge difference between how people see themselves in the north and in the south of England. Obviously, once you bring in Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales, then we've got even more regional differences going on, and people being really proud to be Scottish or to be Welsh or to be Northern Irish. And then of course there are also regional differences within the actual countries. And the reason that I pointed this out as something that British people tend to like doing and not so much Americans is we do have some regional pride as Americans. If you've ever been to Texas, you'll know what I'm talking about. And obviously people might be like, oh, my state is, you know, it's decent, it's pretty good, it's whatever. You know, maybe sometimes Californians might have a sort of pride. But for the vast majority of people, nobody is really like, oh yeah, I'm from Iowa and that is like my identity. I kind of mostly identify as American, and I definitely feel like here, and I've had comments in my videos, that there is a lot more regionality. Is that a word? Regionality? Sure, it is now. There's a lot of differences when it comes to how people identify themselves and their pride in the UK based on their more specific region, as opposed to just being proud to be British. The whole topic of patriotism and pride in our nationality is a whole different video, but in general, I think you'll find it's more regional here.
That I could see that. Yeah, I didn't really get it at first, but when she mentions the Texas thing, for sure. I think most Americans have a national pride about being Americans, but I'm thinking of all the states I've lived in, and I've never been like gung-ho. Yeah, Florida, Georgia, New Jersey, New York, California. Unless I'm joking. Yeah, it's always USA, USA, not California, California. It's different.
Another thing that British people love doing, which I have really been exposed to for the past year, is walking to nowhere in particular. So there's just something about being British. I feel like that means you must enjoy a walk. And the difference is, of course, yes, we do walk some places in America, kind of less than others, depending on where you're from.
Right.
But in America, I feel like we mostly, like, we go for a walk to somewhere. Here, people just like to walk. They like the act of walking. They like the act of kind of saying, which way should we go? This way or this way? And there's no purpose besides getting out and getting exercise and walking. I have to say, after a year of walking, I never want to go for another walk ever again. But it's definitely a British thing to enjoy, is to go for a walk. And I don't mean like hiking. So some Americans will be like, oh, I love hiking.
I love
That's
hiking.
Different. People also go hiking here. I mean literally walking. Walking around your neighborhood, walking around the countryside, walking,
I call that hiking.
walking, always walking.
Interesting. I guess I'm an outlier here because I love walking. I call it hiking just to make it sound more adventurous and like I'm exercising, but it's walking. Go walking around in the neighborhoods almost every day. Just a big loop. I'll go like a big loop from my place to the neighborhoods around and then back to my place. A big loop. I guess I'm British in that way.
Okay, the next thing that British people love to do is to queue up or line up. So this is a stereotype and like
how
a funny
could that
meme
be something
about British
you love?
people, but honestly, I'm gonna say it's true. The people in London who are not lining up, who are completely busting in front of other people, like those are the annoying Americans or people from out of town. Those are usually not the Brits, because there is just something about being British that means you enjoy waiting your turn and you understand the benefit of waiting your turn and not trying to force yourself ahead. I feel like part of it is just like cultural politeness, this cultural order. My husband and I were joking the other day because we're talking about something and like waiting your turn, and he would be like, if they said that there's one left and there's 7 people talking to me, he was like, you would be the first person to like put your hand up and be like, oh yeah, pick me. Whereas the 6 British people would spend like 8 hours debating who was gonna get it, whereas I would just be like, yeah, I'll go ahead. Americans don't really have the same concept of waiting your turn. If you've ever seen a Black Friday situation, people getting trampled over Tickle Me Elmos back in the day, that's definitely what we prefer to do as Americans, kind of every man for themselves.
I don't know if we prefer it.
Here, British people tend to wait their turn, like waiting their turn. And this, again, it's not just a physical kind of queue. I just feel like British people feel much more at peace internally when something has a queue. And also, they really don't like queue jumpers, i.e. people
I don't like them either.
Line cutters
Hell no.
in the US who are trying to go out of turn. So if
Grinds
you
my
are
gears.
friends with a Brit or married to a Brit or live in the UK, you definitely need to make sure that you improve your queuing skills and know how to wait your turn.
Yeah, I don't skip line. And I'll wait my turn, or queue. I don't skip in I'm not a queue jumper. I'm not a line skipper. If there's a line, I'll wait in it. But it doesn't mean I like it. I don't think I've ever enjoyed waiting in line. It actually stresses me out. When I go to the grocery store and there's few lines, like I try to get in whatever line is going the fastest, but then I choose the wrong line. And all the other lines go faster. Just gotta be okay with it and accept it. I don't know of any American who likes to wait in line. I mean, she's saying Brits love to wait in line, but I doubt that. While you're sitting there waiting, what enjoyment are you getting out of it? I guess there's a sense of peace, that things are fair.
The next thing that British people love to do are using X's in their texts or their emails as a friendly display of affection. However, the problem for us American expats or people from anywhere in the world moving to the UK who don't do this is it can be very confusing to decode. So an American might say like XOXO as kind of like a kisses and hugs sign off. I'm not really gonna like do it to every text though, or like really do it more than like to my mom in a card. British people love an X or multiple X's at the end of for some people, like every text, but for others, just like
Wow.
as a sign off. But the thing is, like, someone explain to me, someone please help me in the comments. I know that 1x is like a we might not even be friends kind of sign off. Like, I've had people who are basically just acquaintances, or like the plumber. Okay, the plumber hasn't actually sent an X, but like somebody that I'm working with in a professional sense sends an X, and I'm like, why are you sending me a kiss? Then you have somebody who's like a male friend who's definitely like nothing more than a male friend. Hello, married. Send a couple X's. And it's like, is that okay to send
what are you saying?
me X's? What does that mean? Then you've got the people who send like 86,000 X's. Funnily enough, my husband doesn't even send me X's, but other people do. Is this something that you don't actually send to your significant other? I don't think so, because I think I've seen other people. My husband, I think, is just not very British, apparently. But yeah, so you have to kind of decode the X's, and then you feel bad, like if I don't send an X, they think I'm rude. I tend to go for the smiley faces because that's kind of what I would do rather than send an X, because I often feel like they'll think that I think that I'm British by sending an X, but then I also fear that they'll think that I'm rude by not sending an X, but I don't know how many X's to send. So if somebody could definitely answer this for me in the comments. British people love to send X's.
Yeah.
I need some help on decoding how many to send, when to send them, if I should, and what I should think if a person I don't know is sending me an X.
Yeah, that is a strange thing. I've received some messages from people on Patreon, and they'll send X's and O's, and at first I was like, oh. This, what are you saying? But then I learned that they do it all the time. But I never know how many to send in return. It feels rude to not do it. It feels rude to not send any X's or O's, but how many do you send? And what if I just send one single O? Is that okay? An O's a hug, right? It is confusing, y'all. I think someone in the comments told me also that if her husband doesn't send a couple X's and an O, then she wonders what's wrong. Speak of my neighbors, can you hear that? Stomping.
And the last thing that British people love to do is they love to discuss parking. People often say like, oh, British people love to talk about the weather. This is true, but it's also true, and I feel like not talked about enough. And I mentioned this in my video, maybe about things that I miss about America in relation to parking, but British people love to talk about parking. So parking here definitely is at a minimum. Small country, small roads, not really all designed for like mass parking areas. And whether it's outside of your house, or whether it's, at the shopping center, or whether it's in a town, it's all about parking. Is it paid for parking? Is it free parking? And if it's free parking, then they will have to comment that that's really good. That is good. Parking. If it's paid for parking, you have a couple options, because you could talk about how it is cheap, which is not usually the case, but occasionally this happens, where you could remark like, oh, wow, parking is only 50p for 6 hours. Like, that's actually really reasonable. They don't say it like that, because I feel like no British person talks like that, but you know what I mean. Or most of the time it's expensive parking, and then that brings me back to the first thing I mentioned, which is British people like
complain.
I'll give them this one because you can't do much about parking fees, but it definitely leads to some conversation and to connecting to people based on the fact that you're all complaining about the expensive parking in neighborhoods. Like, we could look out of our window in our house and spend hours talking about who is parking in the wrong spot, who is taking our spot, who is taking our spot that isn't really our spot, but of course it's our spot because we've lived here for X amount of years and now it's become our spot. We see a new car who is parked somewhere even within 5 miles of us, and we're like, why are they parked there? There's just so much talk about parking, and I have to think that British people enjoy this based on how much they talk about it.
Yeah, I never used to care or even think about parking at all, really, until I moved to Los Angeles. Where I used to live in Atlanta, you could park pretty much anywhere. It was free. Pretty much every business had its own parking lot. parking was never an issue, unless you're going to Chick-fil-A. But in Los Angeles, parking is an issue. I will choose to not leave the house because I don't want to find parking wherever I'm going. Or I don't want to pay for parking. I remember one time I went to downtown Los Angeles and I parked in 2 separate places and it cost me $70. $70 to park. It's too much. I can relate. Let's talk about parking. Let's discuss parking.
Okay, so that brings me to the end of my video on things that I feel like British people like or enjoy doing, or failing that, do a lot. I would love your comments below if you're British or if you're from elsewhere and have noticed some of these things. It's always really interesting for me and my husband to discuss, because some things he doesn't even realize are things that he's doing or are things that are different from what I'm used to or our culture, except for when we're at the restaurant and we've all left him in the dust while he's still getting ready for the conversation. But it's an interesting topic, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time.
Great. Y'all be sure to go to Girl Gone London and like and subscribe. Let's just look at some parking. Show me on a map. London parking. Okay, let's go to NCP London's here. How much does it cost to park here? Yes, I leave the car there for 2 days and I paid £67. That's about like Los Angeles. 2 days is a long time. That's 30-something bucks a day. Hey, what about right here? Bank Park, Devonshire Row, Mews Car Park. Why don't they put how much parking costs on their Google? You know? Oh. It's about £10 for 2 hours. Ah, yeah. I feel like this is about like Los Angeles. Let's check one more. £15 per day. All right. For a whole day? Not bad. Still, dang. Ah, I hate parking. I hate paying for parking. So to recap, Brits love to complain. Brits love to say they're fine when they're not, which kind of goes against the fact that they like to complain. Brits like to sit after a meal. I'm into that. It's like a holiday for us. Using cream. I'm into that. Yes. Walking. I'm into that too. Queuing. I'm not into queuing, but I'll do it if I have to. X's. I'm alright with that, but a little perplexed by it. Parking. I've already given you my opinion about parking. Well, y'all, I'm looking forward to coming to the UK soon, hopefully next summer. Summer of 2025, maybe? Maybe. If things work out, I'd like to thank my patrons. I'd like to thank everyone who's bought me a coffee on Buy Me a Coffee. Thank y'all for watching this with me, and I'll see you next time. Later.